So I'm sure that you have thoughts. Cam Newton said during Super Bowl week on Travis Hunter's podcast that when he got to the Panthers, it was a locker room full of losers. Steve Smith, of course, did not take kindly to that. I think Cam's point was delivered inartfully, to say the least. I've always thought that Cam really spoke in his Cam font that he uses on social media so that there's something lost in the translation for what Cam says out loud. But what are your thoughts on what Cam had to say?
Yeah, Cam has not always been the best articulator of his thoughts. And when I heard this, I immediately thought back to the whole controversy about him speaking about women running routes or women speaking about or talking about routes. And even in that, I think that Cam doesn't mean harm. At least in that point, I know he didn't mean harm. In this one, I think that, folks, we got to understand now at this point, Cam is no longer a quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. Cam is media personality Cam.
Yeah.
He is like, Stephen A. Smith adjacent, and that's what he's aspiring to be. And so in order to get the clicks, in order to get us talking about it, you have to say stuff like that. And he has picked up on it very quickly. He doesn't care what his former teammates think. He doubled down on it basically yesterday in a video that I saw. And so, you know what? He said he went into a locker room of losers. That's what he meant. And I also think that the guys who took offense, his former teammates, they were right in their feelings as well, because, as our teammate, this is not something you really should be saying to the masses about your former teammates, guys that actually a few years later were with you when you went on that Super Bowl run. But now you have to separate Cam, the media personality, from Cam, the player, and this is what we're getting.
Vashti Hurt is joining us here at Keep Blitzin on Twitter. I'd like to think that he wasn't really thinking about, as he said, a locker room full of losers. I'd like to think he wasn't thinking about Steve Smith, Jonathon Stewart, D'Angelo Williams, John Beeson, Jordan Gross, Charles Johnson. There were some incredible, grown men, solid NFL football players. Those are winning players. I'd like to think that he wasn't specifically thinking of them when he uttered this, because it was a locker room that didn't have a lot of depth, had Jimmy Clausen at quarterback the year before, had guys who just couldn't figure out a way to become good players. There were a number of those players. I don't know if losers is the right word, but there certainly were a lot of players who wouldn't be called winners. But those guys that I mentioned, those guys are winners to me.
Of course. Absolutely, they're winners. And they proved that when the team started winning. I think if he wanted to be politically correct in his phrasing, he could have said he went into a losing locker room and not a locker room of losers. I think saying losers actually personalizes it and attaches that label, of course, to specific guys. And, in his response, he asked about when did we get so sensitive? And being around Cam Newton in the locker room when he was playing and even post, he would have taken offense to it if somebody said that about him.
Right.
And so, no, those guys weren't losers. They proved that they weren't losers. Some of those guys were on the 2003 team that went to the Super Bowl. So, could he have articulated it better? Of course. But at this point, when I hear Cam say stuff, it's like, okay, this is Cam, the media personality, and he's fully embracing that. So you gotta go with it, and he'll have to answer to those guys when he sees them in person.
Vashti Hurt is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show, CarolinaBlitz.com. All right, so just a couple of quick questions about this. First of all, Steve Smith had the biggest reaction to it. Now, when Cam got to Carolina, Steve Smith, not a fan. And they had their dust-ups. I related a story during the Super Bowl in 15, Super Bowl run in 15. I guess it's 2016 now. The calendar had flipped. When we were in San Francisco, and I got a chance to do a walk-in talk with Steve Smith about the Panthers being in the game, and he was fine to talk to me as long as he had to get to the next interview. But as soon as I asked him a question about Cam Newton, he shut it down. He would not talk about Cam. So the interview, which could have been 3.5 to 4 minutes, ended up being about 70 seconds. And because as soon as I asked him about Cam, he just put his hand up and sped away. He did not even want to address Cam Newton. So I don't know. They apparently at some point maybe repaired the relationship. I don't think so, really. I think that was for appearances. What do you think their relationship is?
I don't think they like each other.
Yeah.
At least we know how Steve Smith feels. And I don't know if it's anyone's fault. When Cam came into Carolina, that was Steve Smith's team, right?
Yep.
And everybody knew it. And so I don't know if Steve Smith blames Cam Newton for his unceremonious departure from Carolina. I always sensed that.
Yeah.
And I felt like the higher ups, wanted Cam to fully embrace his role as the leader of the Panthers. And you couldn't do that if Steve Smith was still on the roster, because not only was he more tenured, he had more respect at that point, and he was still a very good player. And so Steve Smith is the type of guy who will hold a grudge, and he doesn't forget. And I respect that, honestly. And so I think that Steve Smith always has had beef with Cam because of how things went down in Carolina, and he's held on to that. And then because of that, there's some resentment on Cam's part because he's like, bro, I didn't do anything to you. I didn't have anything to do with that. Why do you have beef with me? And so now it's that back and forth. I'm interested to see because Steve Smith is always at Bank of America Stadium. Yep. He works with the Panthers during the offseason. He calls some of the games. If the Panthers are trying to repair the relationship with Cam Newton, whether these guys will cross paths and have a conversation. It would be a sit-down that would garner a lot of looks. People would want to see it. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they made that happen or tried to facilitate something like that. But, yeah, I just don't think – and even Steve Smith said it. One of the comments said, oh, no, this is family drama. And Steve Smith said, no, this is no family, just drama. And so that tells you right there, he doesn't look at Cam Newton as part of his family when it comes to being a former or comes to being a Panthers legend. And he doesn't embrace him as such. And then, therefore, I feel like Cam has some resentment with that. And I understand both sides of the coin.
Oh, there's no question. And Cam told the story about his son asking, Dad, where's your, where's your picture? Where's your statue? And I've been told that his picture is all, very present within the offices and all of that. So Cam is maybe using.
Really?
Is it?
It's no.
Okay, I honestly don't know. The last time it's been a long time since I have been even inside Bank of America Stadium. For a football game, let alone in anything that would be a Panthers event.
No, very, very present is a reach.
Okay.
He is nowhere in the locker room, and they do have by-position groups, former players, like where the linebackers are. They have either Thomas Davis or Luke Kuechly, and these are pictures that they switch out.
Right.
They have maybe a Greg Olsen. Cam Newton's picture has never been in the locker room. And around the stadium, there is a picture from that Amazon Prime series that they did where all of those team captains were walking out. There are no individual pictures of Cam Newton that I've seen.
So maybe he had a point last year, which when I made the point, it was shot down by people telling me that his picture was all over the place.
No.
Real final thing about this, Vashti. That's great insight, by the way. What's Cam's relationship with the city of Charlotte?
You mean as far as the fans?
Fans. I know he always did the backpacks for kids. He was a great, especially with kids. He gave back a ton.
I think people still love Cam in the city, and when it came out, when he said that he wasn't around the stadium, people were upset. And a lot of people said, oh, yeah, you're right. You don't see as much about Cam Newton, especially given his impact on the franchise, as you would think. And, I think that if and when they repair that relationship, it will be huge. We just saw just a few years ago when he returned for those few games, people were hanging his jersey off of their off of their balconies in uptown Charlotte like flags. Mm-hmm. So Cam Newton will always be a beloved part of the city of Charlotte. Every young fan that is a Carolina Panthers fan is a fan because of Cam Newton. And so that's never going to go anywhere. Now the team, the franchise, and Cam Newton have to bridge that gap, because I don't know of an ambassador for the team who would be better than Cam Newton. And then also having that positive relationship would help Cam as well in his endeavors as a media personality. So both sides need to come together, but the love for Cam is never going anywhere. I mean, he literally is going to have to really bash the team or say that Bryce Young is trash and he'll never be good. And then people might be like, whoa. But outside of that, I mean, that love isn't going anywhere.
Vashti Hurt, at Keep Blitzing on Twitter, CarolinaBlitz.com. You're the best. Happy birthday to you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. Vashti Hurt.